All right, everybody. It says live video is starting on Facebook. All right, I am now live. Sorry, I'm doing this in two different places at the same time, so there might be sometimes a little bit of a disconnect. I'm going to stop jabbering and read. Children of Midgard by Greg Garrison. I hope you've listened to chapter 1 first or watched that, because now we're on to chapter 2, which is called The Misfit. We waited on the playground while they evacuated the rest of the school through the emergency windows. Within a few minutes, the entire school was outside. It was a zoo. A couple of ambulances had arrived to take care of kids with bee stings. An EMT said that I should probably see a doctor. My hands were swollen due to the wasp swings, but I said that I'm not allergic and didn't want to go until Dad arrived. Homeroom teachers used their cell phones to call parents so that they could pick up their kids. Teachers couldn't reach some parents, including our dad, so they said that kids whose parents were unreachable would be relocated to the public library 2 blocks away for the rest of the day. Joe and I were standing by a swing set, speaking quietly. I was telling her about the bee. Right when I was describing what it was like to have a yellow jacket in my ear, as if on cue, somebody flicked my ear, the top part, which hurts worse than the earlobe. I swung my head around as Pendleton Pullman withdrew his hand. He was standing there with his friends. They called themselves the Gang of Five. I didn't really know 3 of his henchmen, but one of them, Aubrey, used to be my best friend. Then one summer, Pullman took my place. "Pullman, you jerk," I said, trying and failing to sound tough. He said, "What are you going to do? Tell on me?" He spoke more loudly as he said, "Look out, fellas, it's the Frierson girls. Don't get too close or they might cry on you." "Don't worry about them," said Joe, talking straight to me like they weren't there. "They're just—" Pullman started mock crying. "Joe, owie, I hope, what the scowy bee's gonna get me." I glared. "Shut up, Pullman. Why don't you and your idiot friends find something better to do?" Robbie, a 14-year-old who was the largest and dimmest child in the 6th grade, stepped forward. Pounding his left palm with his right fist, he said, "Better apologize, dork. Powerhouse P just has to say go, and I'll kick the crap out of you as soon as we're not on school grounds no more." Pullman held up a hand to calm his large friend. "It's cool, Roughhouse. I got this." He turned back to me. "When did you go psycho, Frierson? Talking to yourself in math class right before them bees flew in. Like father, like son, I reckon. Everybody in town knows your dad's not right. My dad said he was a normal person back before you were born. Maybe living with you two made him crazy, or maybe it was because your mom killed her." "Stop it!" Joe interrupted, furious, horrified. "Leave him alone." She lowered her voice and hissed, "The only reason you pick on him is you're so weak. Don't you dare talk about my parents." "Well, look at that. Little J. Frey's looking out for her sister. How cute." He smirked and his followers laughed sycophantically. "Go away, Pendleton." She turned to the others. "What's wrong with all of you?" She addressed the one member of the Gang of Five who had not laughed. A few kids had turned to watch. I hated how everybody was watching. "Stop," I said coldly. Showing any emotions in a situation like this signaled weakness. That would be a huge mistake. I looked him right in the eye and started, "We are afraid," finished Pullman. A new voice spoke up behind him. A girl's, slow and quiet and confident, thick with a rural accent that some folks in Frayser County have, even though most of us don't sound all that country. "My mama says you Pullmans ain't good for nothing," she said. "She says y'all are mean and no good. I reckon you're taking things out on Stephen on account of how bad your mom and dad'd make you feel." Pullman turned around to face her. The girl seemed to be part of the background, with dirty blonde hair that wasn't too different from the color of her dress. Her skin was pale and her eyes were gray, almost colorless. She was a brand new student who'd only been in school for a few days. Joe and I had talked to her a little bit at lunch, but we didn't know her well. "What do you want, new girl?" asked Pullman disdainfully. "I'm their friend," she said, gesturing toward me and Joe. "Unlike you, they're nice. Not surprised you ain't talked to me. A lot of people don't. Me and Mama, we just moved here to Frayerton up from Maggie, out near Jonathan Creek, if y'all have been there." She pronounced Frayerton, the way country people do, like it only had 2 syllables. I was embarrassed not to know her name since she was calling us her friends. She said, "Seems like I've been around for a long, long year, though. There's bullies like you everywhere. Y'all are down Baker's dozen." Then she smiled, sucked air through her front teeth, and continued, "Now, I noticed something earlier in math class when all them bees flew in. You know what, Pendleton? Or would you rather I call you Penny? I think Penny's an improvement." Pullman clenched his fists. "If you call me Penny, I'll kick your—" The stranger clicked her tongue, wagging her finger at him. "You best watch your mouth around us ladies, Penny. Have some courtesy. Have some taste." The crowd was growing. She looked at Pullman with a dark grin, stepped closer, and began speaking softly. "I could hear you was scared when them bees come in through the window today, hiding under your desk, whimpering, 'Help, help, somebody save me,' knocking little girls over so you could get out of class first." She dropped her voice to a notch above a whisper, and she sounded almost like a grown-up who smokes cigarettes. "I bet you ain't even figured out what a lot of folks know. You ain't worth a red cent, Penny." Pullman's face turned crimson. "Come on, guys, we don't have to listen to this white trash." "You can run if you want to," she said, sounding chipper. "All these boys are smart enough to know it's you who's scared now, even big there, I reckon," motioning with her head to Roughhouse Robbie. "Yep, scared of everybody seeing how hurt you feel right now, how hot your face feels, how embarrassed. Don't feel too good, does it, Penny?" Before he could answer, she continued, "I reckon you're confused, too. You don't know how to act right now because you're not used to having somebody put you in your place, except your mama, maybe, or your daddy. You look like you might well cry. Well, I reckon it's your turn." She narrowed her eyes and smiled again. Joe grabbed my arm and shot me a look that said she was delighted in how quickly things had shifted. The mystery girl stepped closer to Pullman. You don't know if you want to hit me or kiss me, do you, Penny?" "Well, you ain't doing neither. You ain't gonna hit me on account of you don't want these boys to hate you, and they would hate you if you hit a girl who did do nothing to you except tell you what's what. And you know what? You ain't never gonna kiss me, ever, 'cause I wouldn't let you do that for money." "The last thing I want to do on earth is kiss you, you white trash, but—" "Tut, tut, as Meemaw likes to say," she said, wagging her finger at him again. "I warned you about rude language around us ladies. That's 2 strikes. One more, and I tell your mama. I heard a thing or two about your mama. You know what everybody says. I don't got to repeat nothing." A few kids watching giggled loudly. One boy with thick glasses guffawed. I'm sure he'd been picked on by Pullman over the years. Pullman's nostrils flared as the adults arrived. "It's all right, Penny," said the country girl. "You can go. I ain't even gonna make you apologize to my friends. You oughta, but I know you ain't gonna. It's all right. Go on." She gestured away with her head. "Whatever," Pullman mumbled. "Come on, boys. We got better things to do." He and the other boys walked away. A pair of teachers had noticed that too many kids were standing around the swing set, and they came over to break it up. The crowd parted to let them through, but by the time they got there was nothing left to see. Once the crowd dispersed, we turned to face our new friend. "That was awesome," said Joe. "I'm sorry, I feel embarrassed asking, but what's your name?" "Laurie," said the girl. "I'm Laurie Grimmick." She extended her hand to shake Joe's and then mine. It was weird because it was so formal. Her hand was rough and calloused. I shook her hand and said, "Thanks for helping us out. I'm sorry I haven't talked to you more." "Oh, I don't mind," said Laurie. If I've wanted y'all to hang out with me, we'd have been friends before today. I mostly keep to myself. I like to call myself the Misfit, 'cause I'm all right, and I ain't never done nothing but had fun. And for whatever reason, I seem to be the one gets punished when my friends break the rules, so I don't go looking for friends much. But I was walking along just now, and y'all needed me." This made me feel worse. "You said earlier that you're our friend," I said. "Did you mean that?" Laurie nodded. "Of course." Joe said, "Sometimes it seems like Stevie and I just have each other. Maybe we can all be misfits together. Are you doing anything this afternoon? Want to come over?" Laurie said, "Hang on, I think I see Mom over by the parking lot. I reckon she want to walk me home." She squinted. "Yep, that's her." Turning back to Joe, she said, "I'd like to come over, but I can't today. Maybe tomorrow, the day after?" Joe nodded. What do you say, Stephen?" said Laurie. "I ain't interested in having no girls' club. It all right with you if I come over?" "Definitely," I said, nodding. Joe scrawled our phone number on a piece of paper and gave it to our new friend. Laurie walked away backwards so that she was still facing us. She said, "We'll be good, real good friends, I bet. That'd be all right. A good friend is hard to find. I'd had my fill of bees, but some kids were looking in through the windows of the exit doors to see what was happening inside. A dense, buzzing cloud of insects continued to hover in the hallway. "Look!" yelled one of the boys who was watching the bees through the window. "The window has frost all over it!" He touched the window, yelled, "Cold!" and pulled his finger back like he'd been burned. He laughed as the teacher snatched him and his friends away from the exit. A bunch of the parents who showed up to get their kids looked angry, and somebody's dad was yelling at Mr. Martinez. He stomped past the principal and looked through the exit door windows. He turned away from the window and looked like he'd seen a ghost. He shook Mr. Martinez's hand, and I could see his mouth make the word, "sorry." Then he drove away with his kid. Before we left school grounds to walk to the library, Joe and I snuck a peek through the exit door to see what had made the man change his mind so quickly. The bees had totally trashed the hallway. Lockers were pocked and scarred because they'd been blasted by bees. Chunks of wood were missing here and there. I'm guessing that the only reason the windows in the classroom doors weren't shattered is that they were made of reinforced glass. And on the floor were bees. Hundreds of thousands of dead bees, maybe even 1,000,000 or more, all piled on top of each other so thick that I couldn't see the floor. It was the most disturbing thing I had ever seen, though I would see worse by the time our adventure was over. All right, that's the end of chapter 2, so now I'm going to pause, and I'm going to start another video for chapter 3 because I'll have a different video for each chapter. Before I stop, I want to give a shout out to the music that I used so that y'all can look it up on Spotify and give them some money. 3 of them were by the Pickin' On series. So we had Highway to Hell by Pickin' On series, then Sympathy for the Devil by Low Strung, Play with Fire by Pickin' On series, and Paint It Black by the Pickin' On series. It's really fun. They're a great little band. They do covers of rock songs and stuff like that as bluegrass. Anyway, so I'm going to stop this video. If you're enjoying this, just wait for the next live stream to start, and I will see you in just a couple of minutes. Thanks, guys.